Hey there, it's Sara coming at you with a shorty episode. And today I'm going to be talking all about the truth about wine o'clock culture and breaking the habit. So, what do I mean when I say the wine o'clock culture? Well, think about people saying things like, it's 5 p.m. somewhere. Does that sound familiar? I used to be one of those people. And for so many, wine o'clock has become more than just a saying, it's a daily ritual. I know that that's what I made it for myself. But have you ever stopped to wonder why? Why has this happened? Why is this so socially acceptable? When I was a drinker, I wouldn't bat an eye when somebody would say it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I would be like, oh my gosh, yes, this is my person. But when I quit drinking, it started to be more in my face and almost annoying. And sometimes it would actually anger me. And you may be finding yourself in the same place. So today we're unpacking the truth about wine o'clock culture, how it became a societal norm, and how you can break free from it and create healthier habits. And before we dive all the way into the topic, I want to remind you to rate and review and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And also, if you haven't taken advantage of the free gift that's in the show notes, my alcohol-free checklist, go do that as you're listening to the podcast. This is a list that will set you up with strategies and tools you can use to have success on your alcohol-free journey. The link is in the show notes and you can download as you're listening. So first, let's talk about the rise of wine o'clock culture. This whole phenomenon came about because we started commonly using alcohol as a reward or a coping mechanism, especially for stress or after work. It has become very prevalent in all media, advertising, and social norms, and the ads and the memes that have started coming out have become particularly targeted to women. When I first quit drinking, I was amazed at how much drinking culture surrounded easing the stress of parenting, easing the burden of being the default parent. If you're feeling stressed because you work all day and then you come home and you have to be a mom, then you need to unwind with wine. That's what we're told every single day through this messaging. And it's become more and more normalized because it's in more and more ads. And there's social trends that contribute to this mindset. One thing I think of is on the first day of school. I used to be part of a mom's group for the school that my kids attended at the time. And there would be parents in there saying, is it okay if I just drink mimosas after my kids leave on the bus that day? And other moms would be chiming in and saying, oh yeah, you've worked so hard this summer. You deserve it. That kind of language has just made this all too normal for us and makes it feel like, if everyone's doing it, why shouldn't I? And along with that, there's wine-themed merchandise, memes, and marketing that just glamorizes heavy drinking, but it never seems to glamorize the hangover that happens the next day, right? I also think about when I step into a gift store, how always there's so much merchandise glamorizing alcohol. And it's actually become hard as a non-drinker to find the stuff that's just targeting normal, sober people. So now it's become normalized, but there's also hidden pressures behind it. We're doing so much, right? We're juggling work, we're parenting, we have to have a social life, and all of that often makes us start to believe we have to rely on wine for me time. If we're going to unwind, we need a glass of wine. But the idea of wine o'clock often masks a deeper need like rest, connection, or personal fulfillment, things that we're actually missing because our life is so busy. Instead of saying, hey, put a quick Band-Aid on it with wine, people should be saying, hey, you need a rest, and here are some real ways you can do that. Or you need to take time to connect with your friends. Here are some ways you can actually make that happen, even though I know you're super overwhelmed with everything you have to do. The idea of wine o'clock has a definite impact on us. It has an emotional impact, it has health consequences, and it has social and relational effects. For me, I would drink and I thought everybody else was drinking just like me, but then I would be left with guilt and shame after that drinking. I would always wonder, do all those women that share that they're drinking online feel as shitty as I do the next day? Are they laying in bed feeling so guilty? Because I would often scroll social media and then see all of them doing all of these amazing things with their kids the next day. And I would just think to myself, why can't I get it together? So it was really having an emotional impact on me. And I was trying to use alcohol to de-stress, but instead it was making my stress worse and my anxiety because then I was sitting there thinking about all of these things the next day. It also definitely has health consequences, right? I just did an episode on all of the different health consequences of drinking alcohol. And the physical toll of regular drinking can range from disrupted sleep to high cholesterol levels and high blood pressure levels. So, what starts as something that's seemingly innocent, something like, oh, it's wine o'clock, I'm going to have a glass of wine or a vodka club soda to unwind tonight because I've earned it, starts taking a toll on our health. And lastly, the idea of wine o'clock can actually make us think that we're reaching out to new people, that we're building these new social circles. But in the end, it may actually lead you to be isolating. That is definitely what happened to me. I was drinking with friends, and then all of a sudden that drinking turned into drinking at home and not wanting to go out with friends because I didn't want to have to deal with driving home. So what started as something to connect with other moms turned into me being a total hermit mom and just wanting to stay home. If people wanted to come to me so I could drink at my own house, that totally worked for me. But I definitely didn't want to reach out to people and make plans. So how can we break free from this idea of wine o'clock? Well, you're already doing it right now by listening to this podcast episode. You're building awareness and you're starting to reflect on the idea of wine o'clock. But I also want you to start reflecting on it more through your day-to-day life. Start reflecting on why you actually drank at whatever wine o'clock was for you. For me, it was around 4 p.m. every night. But when was it for you? Why were you doing it? Was it stress? Was it habit? Was it social pressure? A lot of mine was stress. I would get home from work. I would feel like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard today being a teacher, and now it's time to be a parent, and I've got to cook dinner for my family, and I have to make sure my kids are taken care of and get to bed. And I would be like, I'm going to have just one glass of wine. But over time, that one glass of wine turned into two, and then it turned into more. And all along the way, I really thought I was okay because I would talk to other people and they would say, yeah, I do the same thing. Of course, I have a glass of wine each night after work. I've earned it. So really start asking yourself, what was I seeking at that wine o'clock time? Journal on this idea often and start figuring out other ways to unwind from stress or other habits that you can create. I also want you to start reframing me time. Start thinking of how you can make yummy mocktails for me time. Maybe it's herbal teas, joining a yoga class, journaling, or thinking of other creative hobbies like paint by numbers or crocheting, or joining something like I've done, like a community choir. Really think outside of the box and start finding something that you do that is just for you. This is so important if you're a parent because oftentimes we put all of our time into our kids and our spouse and other people. And then all of a sudden we're left thinking, when do I get a piece of my time? So find an activity that you can do that is just all about you. Reframe what me time is. It isn't wine. It's doing one of these deeper level activities. After that, I want you to think about creating new rituals. This has been something I've been talking about a lot lately, but I want you to build a new ritual when you get home from work. What can you do to unwind? The one thing I did when I first quit was I would get home, I would pop in a podcast, I would grab my dog, and we'd go for a walk around the neighborhood. It gave me outside time. It gave me time to re-energize my body, start getting the blood pumping. And then when I would get home, I would make myself a mocktail, and then I would start cooking dinner and listening to a funny podcast or an uplifting podcast about quitting drinking. Having that ritual in place helped me ditch the ritual of drinking wine while I was trying to unwind from work. Lastly, I want you to remember how important it is to start building a community of like-minded people. When I was a drinker, I hung out with people who would accept my level of drinking as well. So not only was I hanging out with drinkers, I was hanging out with pretty heavy drinkers. So all of a sudden, I needed to start finding another community somewhere else. I found that through Facebook groups. If that works for you, go search up alcohol-free groups. You will be connected with so many people if you do that. But another great thing to do is to hop into the Daymakers. We are a group of such amazing sober baddies, and I would love to have you there. So if you're on the fence and you keep being like, oh, I kind of want to try it out, I'm not sure if it's for me, do the 1-week trial and see if you like the calls, see if you like the group, and it will finally give you that sobriety-focused community that you've been looking for. I hope that the information in this helped, and I want you to remember that wine o'clock culture didn't appear overnight, and especially in your life. So it's not just going to go away overnight, right? Just because you quit drinking doesn't mean that you're not going to see it. But by taking small steps and rethinking your habits, you can reclaim your evenings in a healthier and more fulfilling way. I want you to try swapping out one wine o'clock habit this week. What could you do instead that truly nurtures you? And if you're having troubles thinking of what those habits could be, then download that free alcohol-free checklist I was talking about at the top of the episode. It's going to give you some awesome ideas of what you can do to start building new habits in your alcohol-free life. If this episode was helpful, be sure to share it with a friend that you know it would help as well. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and there's so much more waiting for you on the other side of wine o'clock. You deserve evenings filled with joy, not just a glass of wine. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be in your ear in the next episode.